Hey everybody, Julie here from Mostly Caffeinated. I wanted to stop in today and tell you guys about our first, round of interviews with our adoption worker. She came by just the other day and we did the first of 2 sets of interviews. Now, if you haven't seen my previous foster adopt videos, I always forget where the iCards go. I'll try to leave an iCard over there for you. But if you've seen those, or you're keeping up with our story a little bit, we have already met with several different social workers. We've already taken our classes. We've already met with, kind of the screening social worker who screened us into the program and approved us. And then we have once already met with our actual adoption worker. She came out just kind of to do a meet and greet to hand off our fingerprint cards because we had to get those directly from her and answer any questions that we had, kind of meet our kids, see where we lived, that kind of thing. I think secretly that was probably kind of like a secondary screening to make sure that we seemed to be who we said we were and to make sure we were, really actually interested in the program. But anyway, this was our first actual interview. Whether or not you're familiar with the process, I want to give you a little bit of an idea. That means we have one more meeting with the social worker before our license can be approved. All of our paperwork is in, except our fingerprints, and we have one more meeting with the social worker, and then begins kind of the waiting period to get our license approved. Spoiler alert, our social worker said when she was here that we can assume from this week it would be about a month and a half to get our license approved and to potentially start receiving placements. She's set up our next appointment for about 2 or 3 weeks from now. Maybe it's 4 weeks. Anyway, but she said as soon as we can get our fingerprints cleared through the FBI. So essentially, we have to get fingerprinted in the next week or so and mail them away to get background checked. And that process is controlled by the government. However long it takes them to get it done is how long it takes them to get it done. But she said as soon as that is completed, we should pretty much be set to go. She said she types up our whole case and gets everything ready and just waits for the fingerprints. And as long as that clears, we'll be taken care of by the middle of summer, hopefully. So that's really exciting. We're hoping that if there's a child who we can help and that child is all squared away to come to our home already in summer, that would be ideal, we think, for everybody. We are all home during the summer. We have lots of time to adjust and get to know each other. And also, of course, it's easier for a child to change schools during the summer than it is in the middle of the school year, especially since our new child will likely come from the public school system, and we would be enrolling them in my husband's parochial school. So that's quite a bit of a change as well. It would be much easier to do that at the beginning of the year and learn the procedures with everybody else instead of being thrown in the middle of a school year, kind of being a little bit lost. So I just wanted to give you a rundown of what we covered in this first interview. I would imagine this is the same, whether you're married or single or what have you, is that you'd have to answer some of these questions during an initial interview, and then you'd have to have a second one. For us, our second interview, the one that's taking place in about a month, they take us separately and ask us questions. I don't know about what, but they take the spouses separately and interview them kind of in private. I'm not sure if they're asking us about each other or if they're just asking us about ourselves. I don't know. But this interview we did together. And our children were present, but our children are 3 and 1 and can't really be left on their own. So I don't know, that might vary. If you have older children, I don't know if they would be present for this first round of interview or not. But what she asked us were really easy questions to answer, honestly. And they were no right or wrong types of questions. She asked us to describe a typical day in our life, a typical weekday as well as a typical weekend day. And in our case, because my husband is a teacher, a typical summer day, because it's different because we're both home full time in the summer. So we told her about our schedule, about our family activities or lack thereof, about our structure, the times that we put the kids to bed and have the kids get up and stuff like that. She asked us about visiting our extended family and how often we were able to do that and whether we considered that a positive or a negative in our life. She asked us about our chores as adults, how we divide up the housework and responsibilities of the home, and also whether our children have any chores and responsibilities around the home, which they do. I know I've done a blog post about my toddler doing chores, so you'll find a link to my blog at the end of the video on the end screen. But my toddlers do have chores. They do simple things: feed the dog, pick up their toys, make their bed, things like that. She asked about recreational activities, whether we are engaged in particular sports or activities as a family. So we talked about camping, we talked about going to things that are nearby in our town, going to children's museums, zoos, things that are easy to leave if our children have problems. She asked specifically about our dog, about who takes care of our dog. I'm not sure where that question was going. We have a very lazy, low-maintenance indoor lap dog. So the kids feed her, we bathe her once in a while, we walk her together as a family, and that's it. I don't know if this question comes up in cases where people may have a lot of pets or very large pets, and they want to ensure that the parents are primarily responsible, because, a small child can't really be responsible for a large number of pets or for very large pets. I don't know if it's just trying to figure out if you are in fact responsible for all the living creatures in your house, or where that question was going. I have a list over here, in case you keep wondering why I'm looking. She asked about our childcare options. She understands I stay home full time, so we don't usually use childcare. But in the event that we needed childcare, she wanted to know who we had available to us and whether we've used them before and how often we need childcare. So we talked about the kids at school that we hire to watch the kids if we go out for the night. We talked about our friends nearby who take our kids in emergencies, and our parents who are pretty nearby and sometimes take our kids for a weekend or come down for the whole day if we have something big going on. She asked about a long-term plan for guardianship for our children. This might be a question that you don't see coming on this first round of interviews, so if you haven't talked about that as parents yet, now would be the time. She did not expect us to have legal documents drawn up for this, which is good because we don't yet, but she just wanted to know if we had a plan, which we do. So we shared our plan with her about where our current children are intended to go if something were to happen to both of us, and of course that would be the same for our adopted children. She asked us about our relationship. She said, "Tell me your story. Tell me how you met. Tell me how you came to be married. Tell me about married life." So we told her the whole story, starting when we were 14 years old, all the way through married in a scary little apartment in college until where we are here, and how we came to be at this particular job. Being that she is part of our same church body, that's kind of a coincidence. She sort of understood how our jobs work and how we get kind of moved around from job to job, if you will. And so describing that process was pretty easy for her. She asked us, this was an interesting question. She said, "What do you think is the secret to a lasting marriage?" Now, we've been married, we had to think about this when she asked too. 8 years? 8 years. And to me, that doesn't seem like a super big number. But she said, statistically, a lot of married couples don't make it 8 years. So she said, "What are your keys to a lasting marriage?" They want to make sure that if you adopt children, you're going to kind of remain the family that you are. That we're not going to adopt children together and then our marriage is going to fall apart some number of years down the road. And she asked us what we thought the strengths of our marriage were and what were some things that we are still working on as a married couple. And we did have answers to both of those things. I don't recommend answering this question with, "We don't have any weaknesses. We don't have anything we're working on." everybody has something they're working on. So talk about that ahead of time if you've never talked about it before. She asked us about home safety. And here's maybe a very interesting component. This was something I know I had a lot of questions about before fully diving into the process, because they do give you a packet of the rules for foster homes, and you have to be a licensed foster home to do foster to adopt in the state of Wisconsin. And so I've seen all these rules and regulations, and they seemed kind of difficult to follow. They're very strict. It's very much by the book, baby proofing, child proofing, home safety. And when we reached this question, our social worker said, now, of course, your home is safe for your children. So tell me how you've made it safe for your children. So we talked about how our over-the-counter medications are just up in a cupboard. They're not locked away because our 3-year-old and 1-year-old can't reach the cupboard. So they're fine. We talked about how our power tools are kept in the garage. They're not necessarily kept up high because the children can't open the door to the garage. And she said, that's great, that's fine, that will pass your inspection. She said, do you understand that if you have a specific child who has specific needs and tendencies that mean you have to do more, do you know what you would have to do? So we talked about how if we had an older child or a teenager who was having trouble, with medications or addictive tendencies, that we would actually lock away our over-the-counter medications. Or if we had children who were overly curious or didn't understand danger, that we would actually, put up a shelf in the garage and put up the power tools. And she said that is sufficient. So I was really happy to hear that I don't have to go through and completely renovate my whole house for potential children. Because that was my hang up. I could go through and make all these changes and spend all kinds of money doing mini remodeling. And then we could find out we just, we're getting a toddler or something who doesn't need locked boxes because they can't reach the shelves, just like our children can't. Or to find out we're getting, a 15-year-old who doesn't have trouble controlling themselves around Tylenols, and we didn't have to go through all that trouble. So, turns out our home safety plan, because it's safe for our children, is sufficient. And she asked us about parenting, of course, about our approach to parenting. And we don't subscribe to a certain parenting theory. So don't be worried if your answer to that question is not, we're attachment parents, or we're authoritative parents, or we're permissive parents. You don't need a theory. We talked about how we don't have a theory, how each child is different, how we've parented our 2 children thus far differently, and how a third child could potentially be a third completely different model of parenting. And then she asked if we had had any formal training with children with special needs. And we talked about classes that we've taken to get our teaching licenses. I've taken further classes in graduate level work in special education. And of course we do our work with our summer camp. Those are adults with special needs, but many of those special needs translate back and forth. I don't think that would have been a necessary thing. I think if we had said no, that would have been fine. And perhaps that just means that certain children who require a certain level of education would not be files that came our way. She insinuated that she has people in mind. She can't come out and say that. And she doesn't want to, get us all worked up for nothing. But she said she doesn't have a lot of parents in her stack of files, that it would be a pretty quick process. She keeps talking around the issue of a certain age group of children and what if this happened and what if this happened. And it just seems to me that she's got a few kids floating around in her mind of people she's trying to find placements for. So we're excited about that possibility, that it might be a kind of quick process for us. And if it's not, it's not. And that's fine. No children are ever truly a quick process. So that wouldn't surprise us at all. But maybe. We'll see. I'll update you the next time we have an interview and let you know how these separate interviews go and kind of what is involved there, so you can get yourselves prepared. If you are on a foster care or adoption journey, best of luck to you. I hope you're enjoying the wait as much as you can, that you're preparing for your kiddos that are coming to you, and God bless that journey that you're on. And if you're just watching because you're a friend of mine, or you're interested in my life, or you've watched my other videos and you like to listen to me ramble for 15 minutes, thanks for joining me. That's where we are in our current foster care journey. I will see you around. Have a good day.